Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marcus Aurelius, and this is Dominions 4, The Thrones of Ascension. Yes, folks, I'm coming back to my roots. Some of you have been asking me, Marcus, when are you going to do another Dominions 4 LP? Well, that time is now. But before we get started, I want to tell you a story. Many of you are involved in the Dominions community, or at least have seen a number of my videos, so you will recognize a gentleman by the name of Pymous. Now, Pymous is a map maker for Dominions 4. He made the map Atha Avon, which, if you look real close, you might notice that this is the map that I used for my Ulm campaign. He made the map Bidden, which, if you look even closer, you may notice that I used it for my ill-fated and very short Shinuyama campaign. And finally, he created Pelawur, which Tokshin used in his Agarthan campaign. Well, sometime between my Ulm and my Pythium Let's Plays, it all kind of runs together in my mind, Pymous communicated with me, and he let me know that he was working on a project. And this project was very large in scope. It involved many nations that he was going to create in order to create kind of a shared world. And he titled this project Project Omniomicon. And maybe it's a testament to how many internet memes I have seen, but I can't look at it without thinking Project Omnomnomicon. But that is not what it is. And anyway, he wanted to start with a First Nation, and being French, he asked me if I would assist him a little bit in looking over the English, like the unit descriptions, and just making sure that it flowed well. And we're not done with that yet. This is still kind of an alpha. We're still working on it. This mod won't even be released to the public for another 3 weeks or so. But this LP gives us a good opportunity because it will allow people to take a look at the mod and see if there's anything that needs to be fixed or anything that needs to be added. So when he asked me, of course, if I would help him with this, I immediately said, oui, c'est magnifique. Of course, I will be happy to help you. And frankly, I haven't helped him all that much. Yeah, I've looked over his unit text, but all of what you will see is his and his alone. So let's get started. Now, the first thing to choose is what map to play on, and I've put a lot of thought into this, and you know I like maps that are around 100 provinces. I'm going to go with Leaking Land by Elmokki. Now, I've made a little change to this map. I have brightened up the colors a bit, because the original had kind of a misty look to it, and I felt that for an LP, you wanted something a little bit more catchy. And another thing that I did is I took these little walled cities that exist in the map, and I made them no start, so a nation cannot start in them, and I set them as high magic sites. They'll typically have more magic sites than an average province, and so they'll be fun to capture and hold. I'm going to name the game after the nation itself, so I'd like to introduce you to the nation of Ledan. First things first, we have to pick our enemies. Now, I have chosen some enemies for various reasons, and I feel that this map can support 6 of them. I'm going to set them all at difficult AI, with the exception of one that I will set at mighty. Now, once again, disclaimer, I am not an expert at Dominions. I only play single player. I play for story and for fun, so I do things that maybe in a multiplayer environment might not be recommended. So I'm not going to use all impossible AI, because higher AI does not make the enemy any smarter, it just gives them more resources. It's not fun for me. So we're going to go with this. I'm going to start with the water nation, because there's water on this map, and my guys are amphibious, so I don't think anyone has seen Pelagia yet in a Let's Play, so I'm going to go with them. The next one I'm going to pick is The reason for this is because I'm coming full circle. This is an early age campaign, and the last time I did an early age campaign was my first ever campaign where I played So I think it's just kind of fun to see them on the other side of the table, see them as the enemy instead of the nation that I'm playing. Finally, the next 4 nations that I'm going to play against all have a common theme. See if you can figure out what it is. Machaca, Baratos, and Abysia, which will be the mighty AI. Now the connection, at least the connection that I believe is there, is that they are all heavily influenced by fire magic. Not 100% sure on Baratos, but because they're a new nation and not many people have seen them, they'll be fun anyway. Now why do I care? Why am I wanting 4 nations with fire magic? Well, because the nation that I'm going to be playing is Ledan, the Eternal Ice, and it is a nation of penguins. Yes, you heard me right, folks, penguins. The story of the Ledan is basically that they are nomadic tribes of penguins who create magnificent works out of ice. But where did they learn how to do this? Well, the story goes that they were digging in the ice one day and they stumbled upon ice that would not break. And as they dug around it and excavated it, they discovered that it was a giant monolith / creature, and that not only did it not break, but it was surrounded by a cold wind and had a magical energy to it. They also discovered that the tools that they were using to cut around it hardened with the same ice that made up the object, and it was unbreakable ice. It did not melt. So now, moving forward, the Ledan have used this ice to erect structures, to create weapons, and that is the main source of their strength. They are strong in magic, they have powerful priests, they are good in defense, but they have very low protection. Many of them don't even wear armor. They have incredibly poor attack skill, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a further episode. And they don't have any archers, per se. They only have javelin men. Their dominion spreads cold, and they are, of course, amphibious, being penguins. As part of Pymous's project, he already made a list of a lot of the nations that he is going to be doing, and one of the things that they have in common is all nations have 2 major paths and 2 minor paths. For the Ledan, their major paths are pretty obvious, water and air. And their minor paths are nature and, yes folks, blood. These are blood-sacrificing, demon-summoning penguins. So it is absolutely as adorable and horrific as you think it is. And we are going to have a lot of fun with that. So the Ledan have 5 pretender choices. Now I'm going to go over all of them and you can read the descriptions, but I'm going to go rather fast. You've got this gentleman, the Blue King, who is kind of a rainbow pretender. I guess his function is similar to the Great Enchantress or the Druid, just a regular guy who's good at research and can master many magical paths. Then you have the Frozen One. Frozen One, we may do some work on still. He probably will end up being a low magic, super combatant type pretender. Then we have 2 Titans. There's an Air Titan, the Nebeled, who has awe and of course air magic, storm power. And there's a Water Titan, the Vodlid, who, what's unique about him is, just like the gelatinous cubes, he can swallow enemies whole. But finally, we have the Eternal Ice itself, who I'm going to be choosing because it just seems thematic to me. This is the historical god of the Ledan, and it's got a lot of advantages. It auto-gem gens, it has Fortune Teller, and it has the right chassis for a Minor Bless strategy and good scales, which is definitely 2 things that the Ledan need very much. So I'm going to pick the Eternal Ice. So I've thought a lot about what I need to do here. The Ledan, their dominion spreads cold, and they fight more effectively in cold. They have cold power. So their attack skill is abysmal. So for most part, you want to fight in 3 cold. So obviously that is necessary. But we also need to spread our dominion like wildfire. That's very important. So I'm going to go with a 9 dominion. I'm going to imprison him because, frankly, he's a giant block of ice, and that's perfectly acceptable, but also I really need the points. So one key strategy for the Ledan is to build temples everywhere. So I'm going to need 3 order. And since I'm going to be exploring the blood side of their nation a little bit, I'm going to get 3 growth for more income and population growth to offset the blood hunting. Finally, and while this might not be recommended for a multiplayer campaign or something of that nature, I'm going to put a little bit of luck in here because they have some really cool heroes that I want to have a higher chance of getting. And production. Even though they don't have armor, most of them, higher production is still good. It allows me to field more troops, which is necessary because individually these troops are not super strong. Now, normally in the past, you have seen me go with pretenders that differentiate themselves from the nation, that provide diversity. I am not doing that here. I'm going to go full bore water and air. Up to the point, at least, where I can cast some of the major endgame spells and have a decent, though minor, bless. I've settled on 6 water and 4 air. Now, this is probably a mistake, and I'm sure it'll be changing soon, but the Eternal Ice has all the slots of a human pretender. It has a head slot, and now I can imagine maybe putting a helmet on this block of ice. I could imagine maybe wrapping a robe around it, but I certainly can't imagine giving it a shield or a sword or boots. So I'm going to implement a house rule where the only magical items I will allow my pretender are the 2 miscellaneous slot items and no actual clothing items. So he's going to need the Bag of Winds to get to 5 air and the Water Bracelet to get to 7 water, and that's where he's going to end up being. So finally here, I want to give a little teeny bit more luck. So here we are, really high Dominion, imprisoned, decent bless, though it's synergistic with my troops, not entirely needed. A fire bless would be fantastic for these guys, but again, that's very anti-thematic and I won't be doing that. So this is what we're going to do. And of course, I'm going to name the god of all Ledan after the gentleman who created them. So all praise Pymous. Now this is of course a MarcusAureliusLP production, so we're going to play this game Marcus Aurelius style, which means 15 Hall of Fame entries, enabled score graphs. I'm going to go with common random events to keep things exciting. I'm not going to go with very easy research, but I'm going to go with easy research. I'm of course going to allow renaming, and I'm going to up the special site frequency to 65. As far as thrones, I'm going to have Victory by Thrones. I'm going to have 1 level 3 throne, 3 level 2 thrones, and 6 level 1 thrones. And the winner, which is total, by the way, 15 points, and the winner will need to have 8 of those. No, not 9, 8. There we go. Excellent. So that is the rule set under which we are going to labor. Now to the part that I'm sure most of you are waiting for, the naming. I had a really good experience with my naming for my Crusader Kings II Byzantium campaign, which was basically put your name down and it'll be first come first serve and you get whatever you get. That worked really well for me, and it actually led to some really funny situations. I'm going to keep that mostly the same here. I'm not going to allow people just to say I want to be this or I want to be that. But I am going to split it up into categories. I'm going to split it up into 3 categories. And you can choose one of those categories to put your name in. The first category is what I will call the fighter category. Now this is for any commander that leads troops or eventually any thug type unit or super combatant. So someone who mostly does fighting or leading. Now, it gets a little gray because some super combatants and thugs have magical skills which they use to buff themselves up, but again, their purpose is to fight, not to cast spells, so they fit into that rule set. The second group is what I call the battle mage group. Those are mages that will be traveling with armies, and their purpose will be to cast spells in battle. Now I'm expecting most people to want to be in one of those 2 groups. The third group I'm just throwing in there for people who don't care all that much and just want to be in the game, and that is the researcher home base group. These are people that are going to be staying at home, researching, casting summoning spells, not getting involved in battle. It's a good way to get yourself in the game right away. It's a really good way to stay alive throughout the game, but you aren't going to be seeing too much action. I will do my best to try to make sure those people who are named get to be the ones who cast the cool spells, if that's applicable. So, like my previous videos, I want you to write in the comments of this video only that you want to be named, what you want that name to be, and which of these 3 categories, again, fighter, battle mage, or researcher home-based person, that you want to be. I'm going to also write all this out in the information in a separate post, just to make sure everybody gets it. So, that's about it, folks. Please join me on this journey where we are going to bring the cold winds of the eternal ice to the world as the penguins of Ledan. You're going to be seeing a lot of cool national summons. You're going to be seeing some blood magic. It's going to be a good time. Please comment, like if you enjoy this, and I look forward to enjoying your company in future videos. Have a good one, everybody.